Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, we will continue the emotional story between James and Tu Diep, a love story interwoven with hope, worry, and unwavering resilience. In the previous episode, James did not shy away from difficulties and tirelessly searched for Tu Diep everywhere. He went through all the streets, posted flyers, hoping that even the smallest trace of hope would appear, that someone would see and provide a valuable clue about where Diep was. However, despite asking everyone from his colleagues at the company, friends, family, to the police, all his efforts yielded no results. There was no trace of Diep. Everything remained silent as if she had never existed. James could no longer hold back his emotions. He felt that everything around him seemed meaningless. Conversations, messages, and the familiar glances of colleagues at work no longer mattered. His mind was consumed by only one image: Tu Diep, the girl he loved, the one he could not give up. But while his heart was tormented, his body was worn out and exhausted. The worry, the pain, and the hopelessness made James feel as though he was sinking into darkness. However, life does not stop for a love story. The wood company that James owns was also facing serious financial difficulties. Accounting issues, personnel problems, and financial management challenges had piled up on James's shoulders. A phone call from the accountant pulled him back to reality, making him realize that if he continued to let himself sink into despair, everything he had built would collapse. It felt like a slap in the face, and James suddenly realized that no matter how painful his love was, responsibility and strength were things he could not overlook. He needed to rise, to push aside the negative emotions, and continue fighting, not just for the company, but also for himself. A strong will gradually formed within him, and he became determined not to let everything fall apart. James understood that sometimes, in order to love completely, he had to love himself first, to have the strength to face difficulties, even when his heart was bleeding from the absence of someone. James decided to temporarily set aside the futile search and focus on his work. With each step, each decision, he could feel the change within himself. Love could not only be about sweet moments or happy reunions. Love was about perseverance, strength to overcome challenges, sacrifice, and sometimes it was about accepting that we cannot control everything. With a renewed determination, James continued to face the problems in his company, while not forgetting the flyers, not forgetting the hope of finding Diep. Although nothing was resolved yet, he believed he would find a way out, that there would come a day when he and Diep would meet again. But at this moment, James understood that he needed to be strong first, so that he could be the person Diep needed in the future. In a remote place, 150 kilometers away from James's house, Ly, a police officer specializing in economic crime and crime prevention, as well as a close brother of James, was working together with him to solve a major case involving timber price manipulation caused by John. However, an unexpected event occurred, forcing all their concerns to be put on hold. During one of his operations, Ly's team discovered an unconscious girl by the riverside, quite far from where James lived. Upon seeing the girl's condition, Ly immediately ordered her to be taken to the hospital for examination. After a medical checkup, the doctors concluded that the girl was severely exhausted and needed rest to recover. Ly couldn't leave her alone in such a condition, so he decided to take her to his home to care for her. No one expected that the girl Ly had saved was none other than Tu Diep, the very person James had been searching for all this time. This strange coincidence shocked both Ly and James, but no one could have guessed that this meeting would mark the beginning of a series of tense events. When Diep woke up, everything around her seemed blurry. Her eyes fluttered open briefly, and the unfamiliar environment made her feel disoriented. She didn't recognize where she was, and the confusion made cold sweat bead on her forehead. The girl slowly sat up, looked around, and saw a cozy, simple house. But it was not the place she knew. Everything in Diep's eyes now seemed hazy, as if she had just woken up from a long, haunting dream. She didn't know where she was or why she was there. She went downstairs and met Ly, the only person there. She hastily asked, Who are you? Where am I? What happened? Why am I here?" Her voice quivered with panic, her eyes filled with doubt. Ly looked at her for a moment, then gently replied, "You're at my house. I'm Ly, a police officer. We found you by the riverbank. You had fainted from exhaustion. We brought you to the hospital, and the doctor said you need to rest, so I brought you here. You're safe now." Diep fell silent, her eyes still looking at Ly with skepticism. She couldn't bring herself to believe what she was hearing. How could this be? Why him? And why was she here, in the house of someone she had never met? All the memories of her life, of the events that had happened, seemed so blurry, like a nightmare. And the name Ly didn't bring her any comfort. Ly noticed that the girl in front of him was still very confused, and he decided to explain everything carefully. "You're one of the people affected by John's case, right? I know you're worried about what has happened, but I promise I'll help you. James, my friend, is also very worried about you. He has been searching for you all this time." However, the truth didn't ease Diep's mind. She looked into Ly's eyes and silently stepped back. "Please, don't call me Diep," she whispered. "Call me Hoa." Her eyes darkened, and these words sounded like a quiet declaration that she could not, and dared not, leave any trace from her past. Everything had become too complicated, and too many horrific things were haunting her. John's evil plan still lingered in her mind like a shadow, unable to be easily erased. After Diep went upstairs to rest, Ly decided that he could not delay any longer. The situation they were facing was not just about one person, but involved a large criminal network, and Ly knew that in order to solve it, he needed James's help. He quickly picked up the phone and called James, inviting him to his house to discuss the plan for solving the timber price case, as well as the severe damage caused by John. This meeting was not just a work discussion. It also carried emotions built up over days of searching, worries about the future, and especially about Diep. James, although concerned about Diep's situation, agreed to go to Ly's house to discuss the matter. He knew that if the case wasn't solved, all his efforts to find Diep would be in vain. However, he didn't expect that when he arrived, the meeting would be anything like he had imagined. His love story with Diep was not as simple as a romantic novel. It seemed like fate had set another challenge for them, as James and Diep still had to face countless difficulties. When James arrived at Ly's house, it was just the moment Diep had returned from the market with Ly's grandmother. Seeing her brought a rush of emotions to James's heart again. But despite this, the discussions about timber smuggling criminals and the investigation plans that Ly needed James's help with consumed his mind. Ly and James sat down and exchanged information about the criminals involved in the case. This wasn't the first time they had dealt with dangerous criminals, but this time the situation was much more complicated. The timber smugglers were not only illegal traders, but they also had connections with larger, more unpredictable criminal organizations. The conversation between Ly and James lasted nearly an hour, and every minute they spent together, they could feel the tension in the air. James listened as Ly explained the ongoing investigations and the challenges they would face if they wanted to break the timber smuggling network. He knew that this task could not stop, even though his heart still longed for Diep. The feelings of worry and longing never left him, but James understood that for now, helping Ly complete the mission had to be his top priority. When the meeting ended, James stood up, said goodbye to Ly, and left. He stepped out of the gate of Ly's house, his heart heavy. Although he had some new leads, things weren't as simple as he had hoped. He walked out with a sense of emptiness, as though he had not yet completed something important. It was at that very moment that Diep and Ly's grandmother returned from the market, carrying essential items for daily life. It was the magical moment James had been waiting for, but it slipped away in an instant. When James saw Diep, he felt a familiar sensation, but he couldn't approach her. Would James recognize her in that moment? Could they meet again and continue the love story they had once hoped for? Or would fate challenge them once again, making them face even more unexpected difficulties? James saw Diep from a distance, but everything in that moment became hazy. He wanted to run to her, to call her name, but then he stopped. Part of him wondered if it was the right time to approach, or if she was ready to face him after everything that had happened. The fears, the doubts, seemed never to let go of him. He stood still, watching her figure slowly disappear behind the gate, feeling desires that had never faded. Could they find each other again amidst all the challenges? Would James and Diep's love be strong enough to overcome all the obstacles, the criminal plots, and the lack of time? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss any thrilling moments in the next episode. The story of James and Diep has only just begun, and the upcoming challenges will make viewers' hearts ache.
Anh chỉ còn có thể trông cậy vào sự giúp đỡ của lực lượng công an. Những ánh đèn trắng sắc nét trong căn phòng dường như càng làm thêm sự căng thẳng trong lòng anh. Anh nhìn vào đôi mắt của các cán bộ công an đang làm việc, và ngay lập tức một cảm giác nhẹ nhõm thoáng qua khi anh nhận rằng họ đang đồng lòng quyết tâm giúp anh. Nhận thấy sự cấp bách của tình hình, chỉ trong vài phút, một tổ đội công an được điều động đến ngay lập tức. Các đội viên nhanh chóng phân công nhiệm vụ, chia nhau đi theo các dấu vết mà Diệp để lại, những manh mối nhỏ nhoi mà James đã ghi nhớ trong suốt hành trình tìm kiếm Diệp. Mỗi người đều một nhiệm vụ riêng biệt riêng, và từ những khu vực quanh ngôi làng đến những con đường mòn hun hút trong rừng, tất cả đều biết rằng không chỉ là một cuộc tìm kiếm bình thường. Mỗi giây phút đều có quyết định sống còn đối với Diệp.